Columbus made a significant cultural impact when he landed in Hispaniola by bringing two cultures clashing into contact with one another. He also made a significant environmental impact as well. Crops from the New World crossed the Atlantic to the Old World, reshaping diets and transforming natural environments. The transatlantic flow of goods and people, sometimes called the Columbian Exchange, introduced to Europe products from America, like corn, tomatoes, potatoes, and cotton. In fact, scientists estimate that 3/5 of the crops cultivated around the globe today originated in the Americas. That's 60% of the world's crops that the world didn't even know existed until 1492. The New World, in turn, got from the Old World things like wheat, rice, sugarcane, horses, cattle, pigs, and sheep. We mentioned before that there wasn't enough human labor in the New World to work the land the way the Europeans wanted to. One of the biggest reasons for that had to do with another aspect of the Columbian Exchange: germs. People of the Old World were cosmopolitan, which means they tended to move around a lot and had contact with others. This meant that the people of the Old World had much more experience exchanging diseases and had more immunity to pathogens. How was the New World different? Well, Native Americans did not have the kind of contact with one another or animals that allowed for greater immunity. So the result was the greatest population die-off in the history of the New World. No one knows exactly how many people lived in the Americas when Columbus arrived. Estimates vary from 10 to 70 million, with most of the people living in Central and South America. Whatever the numbers, though, indigenous populations suffered huge declines with the arrival of Europeans and the crowd diseases that they brought with them: smallpox, influenza, and measles. Millions of indigenous people died. Let's look at a particular example. Hispaniola was the first site of Spanish colonization. Estimates vary, but there were at least 300,000 natives in Hispaniola before Columbus arrived, who called themselves the Taino. In 1510, the Taino population was just 33,000. It had been cut to a tenth in just 30 years. In the 1530s, there was only 300 Taino left. Another source I found says that the population of Taino went from 1 million to about 200. Either way that you look at it, that's over a 99% population drop. So not only were the Taino dying in droves, but they were not reproducing. Why? Well, the Spanish regarded the natives as backward savages, as heathens, and in return for being introduced to Christianity, the Spanish believed that the natives should be compelled to work for them. The Spanish then forced the Taino to work on plantations and mines in Hispaniola, and when individual natives resisted the Spanish made examples of them with fire and sword. Refugees lived in the hills, where they suffered from starvation and exposure. All of this combined to increase susceptibility to new diseases. Antonio de Montesinos actually records his thoughts on watching what had happened to the natives. He said, "Tell me, by what right or justice do you hold these Indians in such a cruel and horrible servitude? On what authority have you waged such detestable wars against these people, who dwelt quietly and peacefully on their own land? Wars in which you have destroyed such infinite numbers of them by homicides and slaughters never before heard of? Why do you keep them so oppressed and exhausted, without giving them enough to eat or curing them of the sicknesses they incur from the excessive labor you give them, and they die, or rather you kill them, in order to extract and acquire gold every day?" Taino were just one example of this. The population of Mexico would fall by 90% in the 16th century, from perhaps 20 million to 2 million. And the same was true in what is now the United States, with the native population reaching its low point in the year 1900 at 250,000 natives. And here's the significance. Each time the natives died, they left behind their homes, cleared fields and land made ready for settlement. So their great die-off paved the way not just for European conquest, but for permanent settlement as Europeans stepped into the physical and literal demographic gaps created by hundreds of thousands of deaths. It's what historians call ecological imperialism, the conquering of one people by another, enabled by ecology.